So I'm just kind of gonna, why is this sentence is so hard right now? Just gonna kind of be, there we go. All right, so today we're going to be doing a little permanent brow update because I've had these babies on for 2 years now. I tweeted asking if you guys wanted to see an update and legitimately thought it had only been a year. Definitely been 2 years. Time literally flies. So we're just going to do an update. I'm going to tell you guys if I think it's still worth it, what I've noticed in 2 years, if there's been any changes in my brows, and just answering your questions from Twitter. So before you watch this video, 2 years ago, I made a video documenting this whole process. That video goes really in depth about what I got done, the experience, the process. I show actually getting it done, explaining about the technique, the price. It covers literally all of the basics. So go watch that video, then come back and watch this one because I'm not going to be covering any of the kind of basic stuff, which was a lot of the questions that you guys asked on Twitter. By the way, I'm wearing very minimal makeup right now because this is the way that I like to wear my brows, which I'll talk more about. But just so you guys can fully see the brows without like full face foundation on. So I just have on a tinted moisturizer and lip gloss basically and a little bit of blush. So I live in Seattle, but I actually get my brows done in San Diego because that's where my family lives, and I found a woman there that I just love. Her name's Carrie. She's at Fine Line Studios. That's who does my brows. You guys will see her in that first video, but I actually show you guys the first time, which was in March 2016, so almost exactly 2 years ago. And then I also showed what they look like after the first touch-up in a 15 days of foundation video because I happen to be filming when I was getting my brows touched up. So that was the Golden Rose Stick Foundation. So I'm gonna leave that video linked down below so you can see the footage of what it looked like right after the touch up. So I've been calling them permanent brows because the method that Carrie uses is technically not microblading. She uses a technique that's supposed to last a little bit longer, fade a little bit less than microblading, and it's called tapping. So that's the method that she does. But you'll see a huge difference between that first video and then the second video where it was the touch up, because the second time you go in is kind of where you get to fine tune the shape more, adjust the color if you need to, and you and the brow artist are kind of like more on the same page about what you're going for. And also it just fills everything in more and just like makes your brows show up more the second time you do it because you have to do the touch up. So after that second time, I was in love with the shape. It was exactly what I was going for. The color, everything was perfect. And the color does fade about, I think, 20% within the first like 5 to 7 days after you get them done. So they always look a lot darker right after you get them done, and then it fades when you start washing your face and everything like that to be the color that they're going to be. So after that second time, I feel like Carrie just nailed it with the shape. That was exactly what I wanted. So I'm going to start answering your guys' questions in just a minute, but I'm just going to give a quick rundown of anything I've noticed in the past 2 years. So overall, I had not realized it had been 2 years. I thought it had only been a year and I was happy with the results, but for having this be my brows at the 2-year point, I am just shocked that they still look this on. Carrie was saying most people get a touch up between like 1 and 3 years, just depending on how your skin is, how it fades, because obviously they're going to wear differently depending on the products that you use, if you're using any retinols, things like that. So I actually can't get a touch up anyway since I'm on Accutane right now. You can't get any kind of tattooing or anything like that. So I'm waiting until after I get off Accutane to do it, but I don't really feel like I need it yet. Like I'm totally satisfied with them still, which is amazing for having these on for 2 years. I definitely feel like the color has faded a little bit, but it hasn't turned green, it hasn't turned blue. If it looks like that on camera, it's because I'm in artificial lighting right now. I don't feel like my brows look green or blue at all. If anything, I feel like they look a little bit gray. So that is something that I'm looking forward to when I get it touched up, is just adding a little bit more of like a dark brown in there. I didn't want to go too dark when I first got them done because you can always go darker, but you can't necessarily go lighter. Typically, if I'm just running out of the door going to the gym, I won't put anything on. Sometimes I'll run some like Ulta brow gel through just to add a little bit more brown in there, but I mean, I think they look totally great without anything too. So as far as the fading, which a bunch of you guys asked about, if you look really up close, there's definitely certain spots where it can be touched up, just like the shape on the outside and then some of like the brush strokes and stuff, but they haven't faded nearly as much as I was expecting. One thing that I have noticed that I really enjoy is that they almost serve as a guide for my brows. So whether I'm putting on brow products, which I'll talk about with makeup, or if I'm just plucking my eyebrows, the shape is already there and the shape doesn't move. So it's really nice to have a guide to pluck my brows. You guys know I really despise brows. Like I hate doing my brows. That is the one makeup thing that I do not enjoy because it's always frustrating to me. It's never an easy process. They never look the same. I also just really despise plucking my eyebrows. I did it for you guys for this video. So that's just me. So having a guide and somewhere to follow and you don't really have to think about it when you're plucking your brows is just really nice. Before I started Accutane, I had gotten my brows waxed a couple times, which was really nice, just around the tattoo. So they didn't actually wax over the tattoo because you don't want to do that. if you want your brows to stay on. I just waxed where the hairs were growing in, and that's something that after Accutane I'll definitely still do because, again, then I don't have to pluck as much. In real life, whether it's a family or friend thinking about getting permanent brows or to you guys online, I always say go for it if you find the right person, because I am so pleasantly surprised with not just the results, but just how much easier it has made things in so many different ways. If you saw my before footage of my brows before the first time I went in, I mean, my brows pretty much stopped here. They were like way too big in the front. I would have to fill them in. If I just went outside for 2 minutes, I would fill them in. So it's just really nice not worrying about that. For swimming, for the summer, doing anything in the water, that's also been really, really nice because you don't have to worry about your brows going for a swim in the water. If you have a super busy schedule or you're a mom or you just don't enjoy doing your brows like I do, it really does make everything so much more quick and easy. It's also really nice, something I used to always worry about, if you happen to be having a sleepover somewhere, you know. When you wake up in the morning, you don't have to worry about your brows being off your face. They're just on there. It's great. One thing that I wanted to note that I personally do is when I do a full face of makeup, like if I'm putting on a full-on foundation, eyes, lashes, whatever, when I do that, I do pencil on my brows over top, solely because when I put foundation on, since it is ink, it's not actual hair, obviously. Since it is ink, if you put foundation on, it can cover up parts of the brow. What you could do, and what a lot of people do very quick and easily, is just take some makeup remover on a Q-tip, couldn't think of the word for a second, and just go over it. You could even like dip an eyebrow brush in makeup remover and kind of like pencil that on over it, and that would remove any of the foundation. I just feel like sometimes it looks a little bit off balance if I have like more of a natural brow and then a full face of makeup. So usually I do like to add a little bit over top. It's also a really fun way to switch up the shapes. If I want to, if I get totally sick of the shape, I can just kind of cover up my brows with foundation and then just pencil it on the way I want to. If I'm doing a certain eye look and I want a really bold brow, or if I want a really natural brow, I can kind of just adjust it that way. That's usually why I put on product in videos over my brows. What I really love the brows for is just days like this kind of makeup that's just super basic, no makeup basically. So something that I totally talked about in the first video, but I did want to touch on again, is the cost, because it seems like some people compare microblading or brow tattooing to full-on tattoos, because brow tattoos, permanent brows, are pretty expensive. They can go anywhere from like $300, which, you know, like I said in that video, just be careful with the person you choose because they are putting something on your face that everyone's gonna see. The really good brow artists are usually around $500 and up from what I've seen and heard. Of course, you can get a big tattoo on your body for around the same price, but for me, I don't even compare to that because they're just two totally different things. And if you think about it, $500 for something that lasts a few years, I mean, you pay that, if you get eyelash extensions or something like that, you pay that in a few months. So for me, it's totally worth it. Of course, it just depends on your budget and your lifestyle and everything. But for me, I think it's 100% worth it. And I also was in there for about 2 to 3 hours the first time. So also keep that in mind. All right, so let's head to Twitter and answer some questions here. Kayla says, what would you do differently for your brows if you were to do it again? What do you wish you knew before you got yours done? I feel like Carrie prepped me really well for this. I think the shape was the thing I was most concerned about, just because you just have to communicate really well with the person that's doing your brows, show them pictures, like I talked about in the first video. Just be really good about communicating what you're actually going for and what shape you do like, because they're on your face, you know? What would I do differently? I'm glad I went with this shade the first time because I really didn't know what to expect with the shade. But for the touch-up, I think I'm going to go a little bit darker. I don't want warmer necessarily. I just want a little bit like darker or richer of a brown. Mikanchi says, are the lines still sharp or do they blur fast? The lines, as in like the brush strokes, definitely blur over time. The lines are definitely a lot more prominent, I would say the first few months right after you get them done, maybe 6 months. When I pull down my hair, there are definitely certain areas where you can still see the strokes. It does look like more of just a filled in color than it does right after you get them done. Right after you get them done, they look like very prominent strokes. You can see in that 15 Days of Foundation video. Lizard Lady says, do you think you'll end up regretting it in the future? Example, you'd be 60 rockin' brows from 40 years earlier. So I feel like that's a big misconception. If your permanent brows stay on until you're 60, they put some kind of magic in there, because they actually go away and fade, like I said, as your skin cells turn over. So I think if you weren't getting them touched up and you didn't want to keep them, the most I think I've read that they last is about 5 years. If you really like just went to someone that totally messed up your brows and you're not happy with them and you want them to fade, if that happened to me, I would probably be putting on the products that make it fade faster, the retinols and stuff, but also just use foundation and cover it up. and then penciled on. So no, if I didn't get them touched up, my brows would definitely be off in a few years. I'm not going to have permanent brows till I'm 60, except I might, because honestly, I love it. Rach says, do you ever regret the shape or thickness that you got? No, I honestly am so happy with the shape. Like I said, when I get them touched up, there's one area, I think on this brow, that it's just always harder for me to fill in for some reason. I think I want to add a little bit more to the top on this one. But other than that, no. I mean, I love the shape. Mari says, I've been hearing a lot about powder brows. Have you considered that instead? I've definitely seen photos on Instagram and like the videos on Instagram of the powder brow. I'm not sure if it's just called like powder technique or if there's an actual name for it, but I would definitely stay away from that just for what I want. A, because I really don't like the look of powdered brows, even like powdered brow product. I like seeing more brush strokes so it looks a little bit more natural. That one to me just looks like too filled in and too kind of blurry. So that's not the look that I personally like, but if you like that, you might like the powder brows better. Sunny says, how would it work if you wanted darker brows than your natural hair color? I have naturally very blonde brows. I mean, you could obviously get the tattoo color, any color that you wanted, so you could get them tattooed darker, but since you still have hair there, you probably just need to like run a brow gel through just to cover up your natural hair color. I have weird eyebrows and my hair is naturally strawberry blonde, so I have light hair, but my eyebrows have always been really dark. But I feel like you could probably make it work. Heather says, how do you handle changing trends? Some years it's thicker, more natural, thin. One of the reasons why I really like my shape is because I feel like it's not either of those. It's not too thin, it's not too thick. It's kind of like right in the middle. And if you look at my before, it's actually a lot thinner than I was penciling them in before, especially like the front area. Personally, I wouldn't go for like a trend style brow because that does always change. I would go for something more neutral and then know that you can always kind of work with it from there. Ella says, do you have to wash your face differently? So you definitely do right after you get them done. I'm really cautious right after I get them done with not splashing water and stuff on it, and just with the foundation and taking off my makeup. Your brow artist should tell you about Aftercare, but now, no, I just totally wash my face normally, and I have for the last couple years. If you're using like a chemical exfoliant, you probably wouldn't want to rub that right over your brows, but just rub it on the rest of your face and then rinse it off. So I think I kind of touched on everything. Again, I'm super happy with my brows still, and I'm excited to keep them on and keep getting them touched up and everything. To me, it's something that is totally worth the investment, even just for the time I've been able to cut out of my routine and just how much easier it's made everything. In my personal experience with who I went with and just the technique and how they faded and everything, I would definitely recommend. If you're in San Diego or you want to travel there or anything, Carrie gave me a $75 off coupon for you guys. If you just mention Taylor, she'll give you a $75 discount, which is amazing. I don't get any kind of kickback or anything from that. Carrie's just being super nice and giving you guys a discount. And she does book up really fast, and she books out a few months in advance. So if you know you're going to be visiting San Diego and you want to do it, or if you're traveling there, just keep that in mind. So if you guys enjoyed this video and found it helpful, don't forget to give this a thumbs up. I appreciate it. It helps me out. If you're new here, you can join the Bayrito family and subscribe. I upload every Monday, Wednesday, Friday, 6 p.m. Pacific time. I love you guys. Thanks for watching. See you in my next video. Bye.